I watched A Christmas Story Christmas and found 40 references hiding in plain sight that call back to the original movie. So here they are with no restraint on spoilers. And the first one happens within minutes when we hear Ralphie narrating the story again just like he did in the original. Though it's Peter Billingsley doing the narration this time around rather than the original voice and book author Gene Shepard. A Christmas Story Christmas takes place 33 years after the original. And Ralphie is now a writer looking to get his book published, and he hopelessly attempts to bribe his future publisher with food, just like he did with his teacher Miss Shields in the original. And when the annoyed publisher tosses the box of chocolates into his drawer, it looks just like the shot of Miss Shields' collection of prank toys in her desk drawer. After 33 years, Ralphie is still prone to daydreaming, and the first one he has is of winning a Pulitzer Prize for his book, which he graciously receives while blowing kisses to the audience. Which is just like his daydream of receiving an A+ for his writing assignment about the Red Ryder BB gun in Miss Shields' class, while blowing kisses to his classmates. And both films transition out of the daydream by showing Ralph staring out the window in awe, before he's suddenly snapped back to reality by his superiors, with a slight difference that the publisher asks Ralph to leave, where Miss Shields asks him to sit down. After the sudden death of his old man, Ralphie and his family return to his childhood home in Cleveland to spend the holidays with his mom. When Ralphie enters the house, he finds his dad's old fedora hanging on the wall, which triggers a flashback montage of some of his scenes, while we hear classic one-liners from the original movie, like fragile and nada finga. Once the Parkers settle in, they sit down for dinner to eat a bunch of casseroles that have been delivered by well-wishers, and everyone but Ralphie's mom has trouble eating them, which feels like a loose callback to Mrs. Parker's constant struggle in the original movie to get Randy to eat his dinner. Bullies are still terrorizing Ralphie's old neighborhood, but instead of Scut Farkas and his toady, it's Farkas's kids that torment Ralphie's children, and Scut's offspring must have learned some things from their old man, because they put Ralphie's kids in chicken wing holds just like their dad used to do, but instead of forcing them to say uncle, these bullies have been modernized by forcing their victims to say mercy instead. Ralphie goes outside to intervene with the bullies and has daydream number 2, where he envisions himself in a Clint Eastwood western and cleans up the town by taking on Black Bart and his posse of outlaws in a snowball fight, which is a callback to his western-themed daydream in the original, where he used his Red Ryder BB gun to save his family from a home invasion by Black Bart and his gang. Bullies aren't the only staple feature of the neighborhood that returned, because it's revealed that the Bumpuses still live next door with a bunch of hounds that torment Ralphie just like they tormented his old man. And the Bumpuses' yard is still full of old junker cars like we saw in the original film. The Red Ryder BB gun isn't at the center of the sequel's plot like it was in the original, but the famous BB gun does make a brief appearance in a box up in Mrs. Parker's attic, where we also see the famous leg lamp shade, as well as Ralphie's pink bunny pajamas. A new setting that we haven't seen before is Flick's Tavern, that, as the name implies, is run by Ralph's old friend Flick, and his other old friend Schwartz is one of the barflies that inhabits it. But something else that is familiar about the bar is the plaque on the shelf that says, "In God we trust, all others pay cash," which is the title of the book A Christmas Story was based on. Something from the original that didn't make a return in the sequel was the Parkers eating out at a Chinese restaurant with its employees singing in thick foreign accents. But an easy-to-miss reference to this classic scene can be spotted when the Parkers go Christmas tree shopping, where you can see the Chinese restaurant on the left side of the tree lot. The tree lot scene shows that the apple didn't fall too far from the tree, pun intended, because Ralphie haggles the salesman just like his old man used to do, and once they get the tree home, he struggles to get it to stand upright just like his dad. 3 more similarities about the Parkers' Christmas tree traditions are that both dads put the same star on top of the tree, the lights are plugged into a huge mess of cables in the electrical outlet, which blows a fuse and causes the lights to go out, though the blowouts happen at different times in each movie. While at his mom's house, Ralphie anxiously answers all phone calls, hoping to receive word from a publisher that wants to print his book, which is similar to when he anxiously checked the mailbox for his decoder pin, so he could receive an important message from the Little Orphan Annie secret circle. One of the phone calls Ralphie dashes to pick up actually turns out to be his brother Randy, who lives in India and doesn't plan on visiting for Christmas. So Ralphie lies to him that his mom is grieving herself to death over the loss of their dad. And when Ralphie hangs up, he makes a fourth wall breaking grin about fooling his brother just like he did in the first movie, when he lied to his mom and convinced her an icicle broke his glasses. The department store Higbee's makes a comeback, and Ralphie's kids admire the window display just like he, Randy, and his friends did, complete with the same whimsical chime sounds used in the original. Once they go inside, we see the same sequence of shots from the original, with a POV shot up the escalator to reveal Santa's village, where we see old Saint Nick at the top ho-ho-hoing, while his two grumpy elves are pushing frightened children down the slide. Next, the two Parker kids are shown from the side in awe over the decorations, before we transition back to a POV shot of the kids admiring the scene from up close. Then we switch back to the side angle with the parents interrupting their kids' stares by telling them to go get in line to see Santa. But the one difference in this sequence of shots is that before the parents rush off to go shopping, Ralphie's old man tells his kids not to get lost. But the words of wisdom Ralphie offers his own kids calls back to his traumatic experience with Santa in the original.
Don't let him kick you in the face.
As the kids wait in line to see Santa, they're behind a boy who persistently offers them licks of his sucker, which is similar to the boy Ralphie stood behind that persistently made socially awkward comments. When the kids are about halfway up to see Santa, we see a girl in front of them scream as we watch her go down the slide, just like we saw happen to Randy in the first movie. And then we see the same close-up shot of a kid being shoved down the slide by a pushy elf. Another pun intended. On the way home from Higbee's, the Parkers sing a rowdy version of Jingle Bells, complete with fart noises, just like Ralphie's family did when he was younger. And after they all have a good laugh, both versions of the scene end with their fun being interrupted by car trouble. Later on at the bar, Flick and Schwartz get into an argument that ends in a bet to do another crazy stunt. But this time it's Flick who issues the bet to get back at Schwartz for the ice pull challenge in the original, by wagering that if Schwartz can survive a sled run down a dangerous iced-over ramp, then Flick would clear his friend's tab. Schwartz almost backs out of the challenge until Flick goes for the throat by issuing the irrefutable triple dog dare. After that, the neighborhood bullies finally get their comeuppance when they crash into a snowman with their snowmobile that the Parker kids had built over a tree stump. But instead of being embarrassed over getting a bloody nose like their dad, one of the Farkas kids was embarrassed about peeing his pants during the collision. On Christmas Eve, the star topper falls off the tree and shatters, but Ralphie's voiceover narration mentions that it wasn't just shattered, it was pulverized, which is the same thing he said about his glasses when he crushed them under his boot. The pulverized star leads Ralphie to break into Flick's tavern to borrow his friend's Startree topper. And during the whole ordeal, Ralphie gets caught by a cop that just so happens to be Scut Farkas, who Ralphie envisions wearing the same childhood outfit, braces, and devilish laugh from the first film. And when Farkas has Ralphie get in the back of his police car, he daydreams about spending the rest of his life in jail, with Farkas and Toady laughing at him and throwing arm punches at each other just like old times. When Ralph ends up at home, he puts the star on top of the tree, and he and his mom admire the tree in the dark just like his mom and dad did in the original. On Christmas Day, Mrs. Parker prepared her traditional turkey dinner, and the same camera angle was used to show the kids sneaking into the kitchen to snitch a bite, just like we saw in the original with the old man. And if you want to learn 25 behind-the-scenes facts about the original A Christmas Story, click the video on the screen to enjoy more great content right here on Fun Fact Films.